Okay, so we are coming to our second session, going through Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Hidden Treasure of the Sweet Absolute. And last week we went through the introductory section. And devotees are very happy. I had some very nice feedback from around the world. They're very happy that we are going through Bhagavad Gita together. So we went through the introductory section. Now we've come to chapter 1. And this first chapter, it's mostly setting the scene. It's setting the background. And then the spiritual instruction begins from the second chapter. And so we can, but also there is some, and this is also a very nice example of the Paramahamsa, like Gurudev, there are some points in here which are apparently very insignificant, but Gurudev, he took so much from that. He extracted so much. Like there's one line which we'll come to. It's like half a line, and Gurudev gave a whole lecture about it. So we'll come to that. Maybe not today. If not today, then in our next meeting. So this is on a battlefield, and which is interesting. in the middle of the battlefield, this conversation is taking place. And as we know, this is between two groups of cousins, right? The Kauravas and the Pandavas, we normally refer to them as. And so technically the Pandavas, they should have, they have the claim to the kingdom, but the Kauravas, through a whole circumstance of events, which we won't go into today, they have taken hold, and they've refused to give anything to the Pandavas. And now Dhritarashtra, he is the father of the Kauravas. And Dhritarashtra, he's a very interesting character because he's very conflicted. There's a side of him which really believes in goodness, but then he has this weakness in wanting his own sons to be superior, right? And so he tends to kind of go this way and that way. And I think it's a nice kind of reflection of the human condition in general. We have our high aspirations, but then we also have our human weaknesses. And so our challenge is not to succumb to those, lower temptations. So Dhritarashtra, he has some appreciation for goodness, but he tends to be, leaning towards prejudice on the side of his own sons. And Duryodhan, right, he's the principal person, principal son, who's acting against the Pandavas, who's more overtly against the Pandavas. So Dhritarashtra, he has this Sanjay. Sanjay is his chariot driver or something like that, right? Does someone remember for sure?
He's a servant of the king.
Some kind of servant, yeah. Yeah, he has a blessing. Yeah. He has a boon from Vyasadeva that he can see, what is beyond his immediate physical vision. So yeah, some type of servitor or assistant to King Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra is inquiring. They're seated in the palace, right, far away. But Dhritarashtra is inquiring from Sanjaya what's taking place on the battlefield now. And there's one commentary. There's some commentaries on as we heard in these introductions we were going through last week. There are several different commentaries in the line of our gurus, Vaishnava commentaries. In particular, the commentary of Baladevi Vibhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They're very much kind of, referred to and appreciated by the Vaishnavas in our line. And in one of those commentaries I saw, there was one note that Dhritarashtra is a little worried because he's they've all assembled on this battlefield, but it's a very complicated situation because actually they're all relatives. It's not a clear black and white division between enemies who hate each other, but this is wars between a group of two cousins. And so the people fighting on either side, they actually have a sympathetic relationship. And then, there are many persons who are supporting Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra's side, but out of obligation, like persons like Bhishma, Dronacharya, those two in particular, like very powerful generals. And in their hearts, they support the Pandavas, but because of some obligation, then they're working with Duryodhana. They're helping Duryodhana. So it's there's a lot of mixed feeling in this battle, and so in one of the commentaries it mentions how Dhritarashtra is a little worried that maybe some of the key participants will change their mind and they'll call everything off. So he's like a little anxious, like what's happening out there. And he wants his own sons to have their strong position and strong claim. So he's inquiring from son, like what's going on, what's happening. And I also seem to remember some comment that, because it's actually like it's a holy area. In this first verse, Dharma Kshetra means a place of Dharma, Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra, it's a holy place of some kind, and that's why when there's an eclipse that takes place, and when is that? That was probably sometime before the Kurukshetra battle, but we hear on another occasion when there's an eclipse, then many people from all over India, they congregate here at Kurukshetra. Because, in our Western culture, we think of an eclipse as something very exciting. But according to the Vedic understanding, it's considered quite inauspicious. And it's advised not to go and look at it going on. And it's advised to take refuge in spiritual practices. And so there's a custom in India to go and gather at a holy place, especially like a holy body of water. Like also when Mahaprabhu was born, he was born during a lunar eclipse. And so all the people, they congregated on the Ganges in Navadvip, and they're taking the holy name of the Lord, Hari, Hari, Hari. And it's a nice example how Vaishnavism transcends everything. Because from a material perspective, everyone's thinking, oh, this is a very bad time, we have to pray to the Lord. But from a spiritual perspective, it's wonderful because everybody's chanting the Lord's name. So Mahaprabhu chooses to appear at that time when everyone's taking the Lord's name. But I recall there's some mention in one of these commentaries that Dhritarashtra was thinking that because of the influence. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't finish that previous line of thought. So there's there's that famous meeting that took place between Krishna and the Braja Gopis and the Brajavasis, right? That took place at Kurukshetra during an eclipse, because they came, the Brajavasis, they came from Vrindavan, to this holy site, and then Krishna and his entourage, they came from Dwarka. So Kurukshetra, just to make that point, Kurukshetra, it's a holy place, it's a holy site. And actually, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he was serving at that Kurukshetra Math. Srila Saraswati Thakur established a temple, a Gaudiya Math at Kurukshetra. And anyway, we could actually just have a whole talk all about that, but I better stop. So there was some mention there that Dhritarashtra was a little concerned that by the influence of this holy place, that maybe some of the participants would change their mind and decide not to fight in this battle. So he's inquiring. And you know, he's inquiring in this kind of very like neutral way, like, oh, so what's happening? But actually inside he's very anxious, you know. Okay, so we can, without further ado, we can start. Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsava Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimma Kurvata Sanjaya. How do we want to do it? Sometimes when we do Bhagavad Gita classes, then everyone likes to chant the verses as well. Should we do it like that? And to follow, yeah? Can chant together. Yeah. So you want to go ahead and chant? Do you need a copy? Or I haven't got a copy. What about one of your Russian copies? You can read it though, right? The Russian. Yeah, then you can. It's in Russian, right? But can you read the verse there? Dharma Kshetra, the first verse? No, huh? Nietzsche, that's Russian, right? I can't see because it is so thin. We don't have I thought we had another copy last week for you. Maybe. Huh. Okay, you can share. Okay. Okay. Please. So who is reading? Together, yeah. So Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yutsava Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, what happened when my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled for battle at the holy place of Kurukshetra? Sanjaya Vacha Drishta tu Pandavanikam Yudam Duryodanastada Acharjam Upasangamya Rajavachanam Abravit. Sanjaya said, seeing the Pandava's soldiers and armies arrayed for battle, King Duryodhana approached Dronacharya and said, Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Yudam Juparaputrena Tava Shishena Dhimata. O my teacher, please observe the great armies of the Pandavas, arranged in military formation by your brilliant disciple, Drishtadyumna. I'm trying to, I don't have my own copy. On my own copy I have notes, but I'm trying to remember the exact history here because there's an element of sarcasm here, right? Because Dronacharya, he trained Drishtadyumna, and now Drishtadyumna is on the other side, right? So the skills that Drishtadyumna learned from Drona, he's using against Dronacharya. But I'm trying to remember the details of that history. Drishtadyumna is the son of Drupada, right? And the brother of Draupadi, right? I'm trying to remember the details. I wish I had my copy here. But anyway, as I, I believe there's kind of an element of sarcasm here. Like, thank you very much. We have it in Hungary. Oh, you have the purport there explaining. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to read that? What? In Hungarian? Okay. Or just maybe take out the key points and maybe in English can say. Hello. I read in Hungarian first, then. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Duryodhana kiváló diplomata rá akart mutatni Drónácsárja, a nagy brámana hadvezér hibáira.
Drónácsárja is Drupada király között, aki Draupadinak, Arjuna feleségének az apja volt, egyszer politikai viszályt támadt. A pörlekedés oda vezetett, hogy Drupada egy hatalmas áldozatot bemutatva megkapta azt az áldást, hogy olyan fia szülessen, aki képes megölni Drónácsárját. Drónácsárja jól tudta ezt, ám nemes lelkű Brahmana lévén később minden további nélkül átadta Drishtadyumnának, Drupada fiának a 6 tudománytitkait. Amikor Drishtadyumnát a kezére bízták, hogy a harcászatra tanítsa. Most a Kuruksétrai csatamezőn Drishtadyumna a Pandavák oldalára állt, és ő állította föl hadit falangszaikat, miután művészetét Drónácsárjától megtanulta. Duryodhana felhívta Drónácsárja figyelmét erre a hibára, hogy legyen éves, ne alkudjon meg a harc során. Egyúttal azt is értésére akarta adni, hogy nem szabad hasonlóan elnézőnek lenni a Pandavák elleni harcban, akik szintén kedves tanítványai voltak, főleg Arjunát közel hozzák ki, aki kiváló tanítványa volt. Duryodhana arra is figyelmeztette, hogy az efféle lágyszívűség a harc során a csata elvesztéséhez vezet. Dronacharya taught, gave the military science to taught, gave lessons to Drishtadyumna.
Right.
Though Drishtadyumna got the blessing to be able to
kill Dronacharya. That's right.
So Duryodhana pointed out that maybe that was not so clever to teach your potential enemy.
That's quite wonderful, though. Actually, I mean, like to just without any prejudice, to train someone, even if they might kill you in the future. There's something to be appreciated in that. No selfish interest there. Okay, so we'll go into verses 4 to 6. Atra Shoda Maheshwasa Bhimarjuna Samayudhi Yuyudano Viratascha Drupadascha Maharata Trishtaketushcha Kitana Kashirajascha Viryavam Purujit Kunti Bojascha Shaibhyascha Narapungava Yudamanyuscha Vikranta Uttamojascha Viryavam Sobhadro Drupadeyascha Sarva eva Maharataha. Among these soldiers are the expert archers, Bhima, Arjuna, and others equally skilled in battle, like Satyaki, King Virata, the great fighter Drupada, Drishtaketu, Chekitan, the mighty hero Kashiraj, Purajit, Kunti Bhoja, the noble King Shaibhya, the valiant Yudamanyu, the heroic Uttamoja, Abhimanyu, and the sons of Draupadi. They are all great warriors indeed. Okay, we'll go to verse 7. Asmakam tu vishishtasye tannibodadadrijottama nayaka mama shainyasya samgyartam tam bhavimite. O best of the twice-born, please consider too the foremost amongst us, the commanders of my armies. I submit their names before you. So now verses 8 and 9. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjaya Ashvatthama Vikarnascha Somadatir Jayadataha Anye cha Bahava Shura Madarte Jakta Jivita Nana Shastra Prahadana Sarve Yuddha Vishadataha. Firstly, there is your respected self, then Bhishma, Karna, the ever-victorious Kripacharya, Ashvatthama, Vikarna, Bhurishrava, Jayadratha, and many other heroes skilled in the art of warfare, all armed with various weapons and prepared to lay down their very lives for me. Verse 10. Aparyaptam tarasmakam balam bhishma bhirakshitam paryaptam tidametesham balam bhima bhirakshitam. The strength of our army, headed by Bhishma, seems inestimable, yet the strength of the Pandavas' army, protected by Bhima, is estimable. Verse 11. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu yata bhagam avastita vishvam eva vivakshantu bhavantaha sarva eva hi. Now take up your posts at the strategic points of the formation in support of Bhishma. Now this verse, this is the verse I was referring to, that Srila Gurudev gave a whole talk about once. And, you look at this verse and it doesn't seem of such great significance, right? Duryodhana is just giving some order to his army. But Gurudev gave this whole talk in Navadvip. I should have got it actually. We could have gone through it. But this was the point that Gurudev drew out from here. That as we're mentioning, there's a lot of mixed feelings and mixed attachments in amongst these two groups, right? And so Bhishma, as we mentioned, his heart is actually with the Pandavas, but he has this obligation to support the Kauravas, headed by Duryodhana. And so Gurudev's point was that Duryodhana, he knows that Bhishma's heart is not really with him. Duryodhana knows it very well. However, he knows that Bhishma will fight for him because it's his obligation. And so even though Duryodhana is not completely happy about this situation, he's working with what he has, and so he's giving this instruction to all of his army: you support Bhishma. So even though he and Bhishma are not exactly on the same page, he's telling everyone, you work with Bhishma, because he's thinking, we have to, in this situation, we are united, we're working together. So then in this talk, Srila Gurudev was saying, similarly in our mission, everybody has a different mentality. Everyone has a different culture and, different personalities. And we may not always agree with one another. We may not always get along on a personal level. But for the service of Srila Guru Maharaj, we will be united. For the service of Guru Maharaj, we will come together. This was the point that Srila Gurudev was making. And trying to think some of the other specific things he said. But along those lines. And it's very, very nice point, very, very nice point. It is a harmonizing principle. It's a harmonizing principle. We all have our different ways and different moods, different styles, but we are united in this, that we want to serve our Gurudev, we want to please our Gurudev, so we will come together like that. And sometimes we may have to make some compromise, we cannot always insist that our way will be the way that everybody follows, Actually, I saw in this verse, everything that is descending, it is infinite, actually, and so, like the Trinada P verse, there's actually so many layers of meaning, so many ways we can read that verse. And one interesting way that Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he explains the humility, which is mentioned in this verse. He defined it like this: I will not be so rigid so as to not be able to accommodate others. I will not be so rigid so as to not be able to accommodate others. So in other words, to be humble means that we can accommodate other people. We may have to compromise on what we want to do or what we think is the best way to do. We won't be too fixed in our own idea, but we will try to find some way of harmonizing with others, working with others. Sometimes we cannot do it the way that we want to do it, because the main thing is we are trying to continue together in a united way. So and that's an expression of ego, really. to think that our way is the only way, or what we think is the best thing or the only way to think, So, and we saw that with Srila Gurudev, he was so accommodating, he was so tolerant, he never forced his idea upon the devotees, and he would give levels of instruction according to what devotees were ready to hear, what they were able to hear. If they weren't ready to hear, then he would not force it on them, And if they if they want to do things in another way, Gurudev's tolerating that, because that's all they can do right now at that level of understanding. So, yeah, to be a part of a mission, to be a part of some united practice of Krishna consciousness, it means you have to be tolerant, you have to be accommodating. It's the only way, There's this there are these rules of the mat that Srila Saraswati Thakur published. I don't remember how many. It was like maybe 10 or 15 or different points that he called it rules for the mat, Srila Saraswati Thakur. We printed it in Navadvip on the wall. But one of the points there I always remember, even if I don't remember any of the other points. This point I remember, that he said, tolerance is the foremost duty of a member of the mat. The foremost duty. If we're going to be able to work with others and live with others and serve with others, then tolerance has to be uppermost in our dealings with one another.
Duryodhana says this, we should protect Bhishma, so not even the positive side, positive part, negative hero saying this. So if we cannot follow this, then maybe we are worse than Duryodhana.
Wait, sorry, I'm not following you, Prabhu.
So, Duryodhana is...
Oh, you're saying even Duryodhana is making that compromise. So if we can't do it, we're worse than Duryodhana. And that's one way of looking at it. Yes. Although here, Duryodhana, his motives are purely selfish. He's being pragmatic. He's being very pragmatic in that situation. But yeah, it's such a nice teaching, it's very valuable teaching. But also I appreciate so much how it shows how deeply Gurudev was reading the Gita, this very insignificant line here, and Gurudev can give a whole talk about it. It's very, very nice example. Gurudev used to say, I'm still reading the Gita and I'm getting new light. Every time I read the Gita, I'm getting new light from the Gita. So there's so many layers here for us to appreciate. Okay, we will continue. So we're in verse 12. Tasya sanjanayan harsham kuru vidya pitamaha simhanada minadyochai shankam dadmo pratapavam. Then, with a war cry like the roar of a lion, the venerable elder Bhishma loudly blew his conch shell to encourage Duryodhana. Okay, verse 13. Tata shankascha biryascha panavanaka gomukha sahasaiva hanyanta sa shabdastu mulo bhavat. At once there arose a tumultuous vibration of conch shells, kettle drums, hand drums, bugles, and the resounding of many instruments. Okay, verse 14. Tata svete hayer yukte mahatis yandane stito madhava pandavaschaiva divyo shanko pradadmatu. Then Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, in a magnificent chariot drawn by white horses, blew their divine conch shells. Verse 15. Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadatam Dhananjaya Pondram Dadmo Mahashankam Bhimakarma Vikrodhara. Rishikesh, Krishna blew his conch shell, Panchajanya. Dhananjaya, Arjuna, sounded his, the Devadatta. And Bhimsen, the performer of mighty tasks, blew the conch shell, Pondra. Verse 16. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthira Nakula Sahadevascha Sugosha Mani Pushpako. King Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew the Ananta Vijay, while Nakul and Sahadev blew the conch shells, Sugosha and Mani Pushpaka. So 17 and 18. Kasyascha Parameshwasa Shikandi cha Maharata Trishtadyumna Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitaha Drupado Dropadeyascha Sarvasha Pritivipate Sobhajascha Mahabahu Shankandadmu Pitak Pitak. O Lord of the earth, the skilled archer Kashiraj, the great warrior Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, King Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, King Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the mighty son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu, all blew their conch shells. So verse 19. Sagosho Dartarashtanam Vidayani Vyadarayat Nabhascha Pritivim Chaiva Tumulo Vyanunadayam. Resounding throughout the land and heavens, the tremendous vibration of those conch shells pierced the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Verse 20. Atavya vastitan drishtra dhartarashtram kapidvaja pravite shastra sampate dana udyamya pandava ishikesham tatavakyam idam maha mahipate. Verse 20. O king, as the battle was about to commence, Arjuna, whose chariot was adorned with the flag of Hanuman, seeing Duryodhana and his army poised for battle, took up his bow and said to Sri Krishna, Arjuna Vacha, Senayor Ubayor Madhye Ratam Stapayame Chuta Yavadeta Niriksheham Yodukamanavastitam. Oh, we should go on, yeah. Kermaya Sahayudavyam Asmindana Samudyame Yotyamanam Aviksheham Yayate Cha Samagataha Tartarashtrasya Durbuddhe Yude Priya Chikishava. O Krishna, please place my chariot between the two armies, so I may observe the warriors with whom I must contend on this battlefield, and who have come to fight for the satisfaction of the wicked Duryodhana. Sanjaya Vacha. Evam mukto Rishikesho Gurakeshena Bharata Senayor Ubayor Madhye Stapayitra Ratotamam Bhishma Drona Pramukata Sarvesham Cha Mahikshitam Uvacha Partha Pashyaitam Samavetan Kuduniti. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharat, after the vigilant Arjuna spoke these words, Shri Krishna, the Lord of the perceptions of all living beings, drew the grand chariot between both armies before Bhishma, Drona, and all the chieftains of the earth. The Lord then said, O Partha, behold the Kauravas assembled here for battle. So verse 26. Tatra pasyad stitam partha pitrinata pitamahan acharjan matulan brachin putram potran sakimstata swasharan suhridaschaiva senayor upayor api. There within both armies Arjuna saw paternal and maternal elders, grandfathers, teachers, brothers, sons, grandsons, fathers-in-law, friends, and other well-wishers. My goodness, what a situation. So, verse 27. Tan samiksha sakunteya sarvam bandhu navastitan vipaya paraya vishto vishidanidam abravit. Seeing his kinsmen present on the battlefield, Arjuna, the son of Kunti, was grief-stricken and overcome with pity. 28. Arjuna Vacha Drishtaman Sajanam Krishna Yuyutsan Samavastitan Siddhanti Mama Gatani Mukam Cha Padishushyati. O Krishna, seeing all these relatives and friends assembled and eager for battle, the strength is draining from my limbs and my mouth feels parched. Verse 29. Vipatuscha sharire me romaharshascha jayate kandivam shamsate hasta tvakchaiva paridayate. I am trembling and the hairs on my body are standing on end. My skin is burning and I am losing grip of my Gandiva bow. Nacha shoknom yavastatum brahmativa cha me manaha nimitani cha pashyani viparitani Keshava. O Keshava, I cannot maintain my composure any longer. My mind is disturbed and I see bad omens. Nacha sheyonu pashyami hatva sajanamahave nakangshe vijayam Krishna nacha rajam sukhani cha. I do not see any good in killing my kinsmen in this battle. O Krishna, I have no wish for victory or to enjoy a kingdom. So, verse 32, right? Kim no rajyena govinda kim bhager jivitena va ye shamarte kangshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha. Taime vastita yude pranam styaktva danani cha hacharja pitara putras tattaiva cha pitamaha matula shvashara putra shala sambandhinastata etanna huntamicchami gyatopi madhusudana. O Govinda, if those for whom we desire all of this, teachers, paternal and maternal elders, sons, grandfathers, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives, are about to risk their wealth and lives in battle, of what value is our kingdom and its royal pleasures, or even life itself? O Madhusudam, I do not wish to kill them, even though I myself may be killed. And we also have to appreciate this in the context of the Vedic culture, where family, it's a religious institution. The family is something sacred. So, actually, in all cultures you find that. And now it's something that's dying out more and more. But I think in all cultures around the world, there's something sacred about the family. But especially in the Vedic culture, one's ancestors, they're worshipable. One's elders are worshipable. So this is very heavy, and Arjuna is saying like all the wealth and property, this is really to please our family members. So what's the point of fighting with our family members if they're the ones we would want things for anyway? There's what he's saying. It makes sense from a material perspective, a more general perspective. So he's saying, and there's a nobility here. He's saying, let me die, but don't put me in. If they want to kill me, they can kill me. And he says it more explicitly. This is coming up. A very nice point. He's saying like, let me die if necessary, but I don't want to be in a position of having to kill them. These are all respectable, beloved persons to me. Okay, so now verse 35. Api trailokya rajyasya heto kimnu mahi krite nihajya dartarashchana kapriti janardana. O Janardan, even if we gain sovereignty over the three worlds, not to speak of ruling the earth, how can we be happy if we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra? Papam evashayedasman hatvaitan atatayinaha tasmanarha vayam hantum dartarashcham sabandhavam swajanam kikatam hatva sukhina shama madhava. Only sin will befall us if we slay our teachers and guardians, though they be our adversaries. So even though they're presently posed as our enemies, as our adversaries, still fundamentally they are our teachers and guardians. So even if they are posing like this now, I cannot help but think of them in this other way. So it cannot but be sinful if I harm these persons. We cannot take the lives of our own relatives, the sons of Dhritarashtra. O Madhava, how can we be happy by killing our kinsmen? So 37 to 38. Yadyapitena pashyanti lobopahata cetasa kulakshaya kritam dosham mitrajohe chapatakam katam nagyeyam asmabi paparasma nivartitam kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashadbir janardana. Although they, overwhelmed with greed, cannot see the sin of betraying one's friends and destroying the dynasty, O Janardan, how can we not refrain from this heinous act, being in full knowledge of the consequences? So this is a very profound point here, very important point. He's saying they are ignorant, so we cannot blame them for what they're doing. But we are not ignorant. We have some knowledge. We have some consciousness. So we should know better. We cannot blame them. They don't know any better. They're just ignorant. They're blinded by their greed and their material desire. So we cannot blame them. They don't know any better than that. But we know better. So we should do better. If we sink to their level, we're actually doing something worse because we know, a higher mentality. So very, very important. It's a very wonderful point. Completely non-envious, completely devoid of any self-centered thinking, completely free of any ego. And this is actually like a central theme in Bhagavad Gita, that we have to, and it's one of the key elements of karma yoga, that I have to do my duty. No matter whether others do their duty or not, no matter, we cannot be swayed by the different waves of the environment and what this person said or did, or that person said or did, or this happened or that. We have to understand what is the path of truth, and we have to follow that. So I was reminded the other day of there are these very nice verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the last chapter. Sorry, not the last. How many more verses? We'll try and finish today. In the last chapter of... No, sorry, not the last chapter. Is it the last? No, it's the end of the second chapter of the Madhya Lila, which is a summary of the last section, the final section of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the second chapter is very significant. I mean, I don't think it would be too audacious to say it's the most ecstatic chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a summary the final pastimes of Mahaprabhu, because Kaviraj Goswami thinks he may leave the world very soon. So in the beginning of the middle section, he gives a summary of the final section, and it's an extraordinary description of Mahaprabhu's mood of divine love and separation and madness, um, and there's some Sanskrit verses which are quoted throughout that chapter from different places. And then then at the end of that chapter, Kaviraj Goswami is saying, some people, they may criticize me because they may say I've used so many Sanskrit verses and I should just keep it simple with only Bengali verses. And then he has some, defense there for that. And then he makes this very nice point, and he says, I'm simply describing what is the truth. I am not, I am not writing in reaction to what anyone else has said. I'm not writing against what anyone else has said. I'm not writing for what anyone else has said. Like I have no agenda, basically. Like I have no agenda. I'm not on any campaign here, to support or to go against somebody else's conclusion. But what is the truth in this like clean, neutral and disinterested way, free from any self-interest? I'm describing that. What is the truth? Nothing else, And Gurudev, he was quoting that one time, and he was saying, what Guru Maharaj wanted, I'm following that. Like simple, bas. I'm not involving with what this person thinks or that person thinks, and I don't want to compete with anybody. That was the main point he was making. I don't want to compete with anyone. Like I'm not measuring myself against what somebody else has done. For me, it's very simple. I'm just trying to follow Guru Maharaj. I'm living exclusively with Srila Guru Maharaj at Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math. Bas. That's it. Finish. like that. So like, because we, it's we tend to live in this like reactionary consciousness. This person said this or did this, and we're reacting. We are acting like in reaction to what others have said or done. Like, how much energy do we spend in our days, in that mentality? It's a shame. It's a shame, at least for myself. So it's very beautiful what Arjuna is saying, like to just live in this consciousness of what is the right thing to do at any given time, and to not be, involved or reacting to, what negativity others have done. So, that's one thing that we draw from this. And then also, just to emphasize this point, we shouldn't be so affected or so disturbed by the negativity of others, because it's just a reflection of their own ignorance, and if somebody's ignorant, then they'll behave in an ignorant way. We can't blame them for it in one sense. We shouldn't let that disturb us. It's different if an educated person or a conscious person does something wrong. That's a very different matter. But if an ignorant person does something bad, then what else do you expect? It's not something to get excited about, A dog is barking. That's normal. Like, it's a little annoying, but what else do you expect, from a dog? That's what they do. So there's a nice section in Chaitanya Charitamrita where there's this man who's very offensive to Haridas Thakur. And there's this comment there that Haridas Thakur, he was not bothered by that man because he knew he was ignorant, or something like that. It didn't upset him because he knew he's just an ignorant man. So it is another thing to consider. It's like if a small child does something rude, we don't take it so seriously, right? But in the same way, if somebody may be an adult, but they may not be very intelligent or very conscious, and they're behaving in an ignorant way, then we also, in the same ways we wouldn't be disturbed by a child, we should not also be disturbed by them. Of course, this is all in theory. In practice, it's a different matter. On the ground level, it's different. But it's important at least that we remind ourselves of these things over and over. So very beautiful. It's a very noble perspective on this situation. Like also in the Ramayana, and this is one of the most wonderful things, in the Ramayana, when Ravan's brother, Vibhishan, right? He's actually a devotee. Ravan is enemy number one, but his brother Vibhishan is a devotee, and he comes to take shelter in Ramachandra's camp, right? And then at that time, there's a lot of suspicion around this. How can we really trust him? And so he comes across the ocean, and he arrives to the shore. He comes from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is where Ravan was, right? Yeah. So he comes from Sri Lanka across the ocean, and Ramachandra is on the shore getting ready to cross and to begin his battle to bring back Sita Devi. So Vibhishan arrives on the shore to Ramachandra's camp, and saying he wants to meet with Ramachandra, he wants to take shelter. And they bring this news to Ramachandra, and so Ramachandra holds like a council with his advisors and his associates, and he asks them, what is your opinion, and they're concerned, like, how can we really trust him? He's coming from the end. He's the brother of our number one enemy. This is not so sure about this. And so Ramachandra listens to all of them, and then he makes very beautiful points. He says, if somebody's coming to me for shelter, it is my duty to accept them. And he said, even if he's coming with ulterior motives, still I have to accept him, because that's my duty. Maybe he's doing his duty wrong, but that's not my business. That's his business. I have to do my duty properly. And how he's doing his duty, that is nothing to do with me, actually. Very, very noble consciousness. Very inspiring. It's very good to be reminded of these things. These are actually like, this is not even getting to Krishna consciousness. This is just like a dharmic way to live. This is like the life of an elevated human being. So like these are like some of the like fundamental things that we can forget about sometimes. Maybe we're flying high with all of these very fine ideas, but these like fundamental things, it's very good to remind ourselves of them sometimes. Okay, I think we can finish this chapter. So verse 39. Kulakshaye pranashyanti kula dharma sanatanaha dharme nashte kulam krishnam na dharma vibhavatyuta. With the decline of the dynasty, its religious traditions are lost. When religious practices are lost, irreligion overcomes the entire dynasty. Verse 40. Dharma bibhavat Krishna padusyanti kulastriha Srishu dushtasu varsneya jayate varna sankara. O Krishna, descendant of the Vrishni dynasty, when the dynasty is thus overcome by irreligion, the women of the family become corrupt, and adulterated progeny is the result. Verse 41. Sankaro narakayaiva kulagyanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hesham lupta pindodaka kriyaha. Adulterated progeny forces both the family and its aggressors into a hellish existence. The same fate befalls their ancestors because regular offerings of food and water to them cease. Doshetai kulagyanam varna sankara karakai utsadyante jati dharma kula dharmascha shashvata. Such heinous acts by the destroyers of the dynasty are the dynasty or dynasty. I always get mixed up. I think one might be British and one American, but I'm not sure. Such heinous acts by the destroyers of the dynasty are the cause of adulterated progeny, ruining the culture of a civilized society and noble lineage. Verse 43. Utsana kula dharmanam manushanam janardana nadake niyatam vaso bhavatityanu. O Janardan, we have heard that persons whose familial, social, and religious traditions are disrupted dwell always in hell. Aho bata mahat papam kartum yavasita vayam yadajya sukalobena hantum swajanam udyata. Alas, what a grave sin we have resolved to commit. Driven by greed for trifling royal happiness, we are about to slay our own kinsmen. Yadimam apratikadam masastram sastrapanaya tartarashcharane hanyus tanmekshe mataram bhavet. If unarmed and unresisting I am killed on this battlefield by the armed sons of Dhritarashtra, that will be more auspicious for me. Sanjaya Vacha Evam Muktvarjuna Sankhe Ratapashta Upavishat Vishijya Sarshadam Chapam Shoka Samvigyamanasaha. Sanjaya said, there on the battlefield, speaking these words, Arjuna cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his heart filled with sadness. Iti Shri Mahabharate Shatta Sahasrayam Samhitayam Vayasikyam Bhishma Parvani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Sainya Darshanam Nama Pratamodaya. End of chapter 1. Observing the armies from the conversation of Shri Krishna and Arjuna and Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad, the yoga scripture of transcendental knowledge, and Bhishma Parva of Sri Mahabharata, the holy scripture revealed by Srila Vyasadeva in 100,000 verses. So we end on a cliffhanger here. What happens next? So, like at this point, if we don't know what happens next, like if we're reading this without knowing what this is, then we're sympathizing with Arjuna, right? We're all like, yeah.
I'm convinced every time. Okay.
Exactly. Very good points. Makes perfect sense. So then, how is Krishna going to respond? Okay. Any last comments from anyone? Should we stop there? Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Jai. Okay. Jai Shri Gurudev Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Goswami. Jai. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sai Rupa Sanatan Vata Raghunatha Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhana Raha Hoite Vignana Sabisha Purana Echai Gosai Jai Bhuvi Chadadasa Pancha Bada Pada Denu Mura Pancha Grasa Sajara Charana Sebi Bhakta Sane Bhakta Jana me mohe abhilasha Jana me mohe abhilasha Jana me mohe abhilasha Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilo Basa Jabe Braje Koilo Radha Krishna Nitya Leela Kodila Prakasha Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Amana Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Kori Hasha Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Kori Hasha Padma Kori Hasha Hari Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottama Dasa Hari Nam Sankirtan Kohe Narottama Dasa Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki Jai, Shri Rupananda Guru Varga ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Saprasad Shrima Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Shri Navadip Dham ki Jai, Shri Ganga Jamuna ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi, Vinda Devi, Tulasi Devi ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Shama Kundad Giri Govardhan ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki Jai, Vishwavyapi Tadiya Shakamat ki Jai, all the assembled devotees ki Jai, all the world devotees ki Jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Vishwakali ki Jai.